Welcome to the Crypto Adoption Week. This is the first time that several of the industry players in this space in the Nordics and we as a media company, Kaupir, are going together to present one unique survey that has been done the last weeks in all the Nordic countries between the Ernst & Young and K33, which several years have created a report in the Norwegian setting, but this time it's also in a Nordic setting where there are separate surveys done in Sweden, in Denmark, in Finland, and of course in Norway, but there will also be a summary regarding this, for instance, on the Thursday event where we also have the last event in this series. And one of the guests that we have here is Cesar, because Nordic Blockchain Association is also a partner of this event to build awareness and knowledge about this adoption thing. And Cesar, maybe you could start with just shortly explain what is the Nordic Blockchain Association.
Thank you, Morten. Thank you for this beautiful initiative that you and Kaupir has initiated here in this particular time for the crypto community and for the industry. I represent the Nordic Blockchain Association. I am also co-chairing the Best Practices Steering Committee at the Nordic Blockchain Association. So NBA is an NGO dedicated to the blockchain and Web3 community. It was created in 2017 with the main advocacy to support companies in the blockchain or using the blockchain industry. Back then was mainly the crypto-related companies, and then it started to build an ecosystem around them, not only in Denmark, but around the Nordics. Today, we are trying to make more resilience to the ecosystem in the Nordics, trying to put together all the players that are using Web3 technologies, in particular the blockchain, and also try to have a one-year event that try to gather all those players in one place to try to have more probably influence on the policymakers and try to make the ecosystem in the Nordics much better and much understandable for the community and the industry.
Yes, and maybe it's correct to say that the agenda of the Nordic Blockchain Association is even more moving into a Nordic frame. It has a very strong hold in Denmark, but there has been some events in Norway, there has been some events in Finland, there has been some events in Finland as well, and Norway. But this is the first time that there is a survey on the Nordic level. So what is the importance of that, would you think then, Cesar?
Yes, and thank you for precising. So at the beginning, the Nordic Blockchain Association started in Denmark, and despite the name is Nordic, the focus was in Denmark. But since last year, we started to get really into the Nordics. We have several activities in Sweden, in Finland, in Norway, and hopefully soon in Iceland. And we are pretty much happy to have working on this first survey that states or show the state of the adoption of cryptocurrency and the industry, particularly in the Nordic. So it is important for us as a player that's gather many of the industry stakeholders. We are trying to build a Nordic ecosystem, and it is very vital for all of the players to have a deep understanding on what is going on here, and also send a message to the policymakers that there is a need to involve all the stakeholders in any future actions, because it's matter those industry players. And this is why today's report and today's survey will send this clear message that there is a community, that there is many industry players, that they want to send their point of view regarding what is going on around the world, and also have a feedback about the regulation going on, especially the MiCA and other regulation in the country. So it's very important for the industry players as well. It is very important for the policymakers to have an insight about what is going on in the Nordic country. So we are very happy to take part of that, and we are grateful for EY for the great effort that they have been doing for many years now, and also for K23, and also for you, Morten and Cooper, for the great effort.
Thank you very much, then, Cesar. And now we will then start to dig into the first findings. And as this is a week, we will have then events on Monday, Sweden, on Tuesday, Denmark, on Wednesday, Finland, and on Thursday we will have then the Norwegian results, and also the overview of the Nordic view. So we will not release all the numbers in the beginning, but we will focus today on Sweden. And then we can start with you guys, Anders and Mats. And you guys are the two companies behind this survey that has now for the third years maybe in Norway. But you can present yourself. Maybe you could start, Mats.
Sure, thank you so much, Morten. So my name is Mats Riben, an associate partner at EY Tax and Law in Norway. I've been working in the digital law and asset space since 2017, really, and then coming into the tech side of EY's, who has focused in this particular segment since 2015. And it's been obviously really interesting, right, to follow this particular space since then. It's been a large different developments since then, and working on the regulatory side. Obviously, it's very exciting times, right, with the markets in crypto assets regulation coming into play from the EU during 2024. And I'm really excited to be able to start off now this week with Sweden, who has been known as the fintech capital, right, perhaps of the Nordics, and to see what is the adoption rate of the Swedes in terms of crypto compared to both Norway last year and compared to then the results that we will present during the week. Over to you, Anders.
Yes, thank you very much, Mats. My name is Anders Helseth, and I am from K33 Research. K33 is a research-led brokerage operating mainly in the Nordics, with a headquarters in Oslo. So we have the research arm, which I am leading, and we have our brokerage, and we have a fund, an actively managed crypto fund. So that's the three things we do in K33. And now we can go on to look at the actual results from the survey we have done in Sweden. And the survey is done on a representative population. And we have used Norstat to help us conduct the survey. And we think the results are very interesting, and especially when we go further out in the week and compare to the other Nordic countries, we can see both similarities and differences. So let's start off with the overall, the high-level numbers. And from our survey, we find that 550,000 Swedes own crypto. That equates to 7% of the adult population. The same number from Norway last year was 8%. So at least compared to the ownership rate in Norway last year, it was a bit higher ownership rate than in Sweden. Still, Swedes, there are more Swedes, so there are more Swedish crypto owners than Norwegian. We are going to go further into the demographics of these crypto owners in Sweden. So for now, I can just note that we see that there is a higher likelihood of people living in the big cities owning cryptocurrency than people in the rural areas. And also that crypto ownership correlates with education and high income. So if you are more educated and a higher income, you have a higher likelihood of owning cryptocurrency. That is very much similar to other investment assets. Then I'll send it over to you, Mats.
Yeah, good. So when looking at the particular numbers, right, going into depth, who is actually buying crypto, we see it's really the millennials in Sweden who are driving that adoption. The larger population is between 18 to 29, which might be not surprising that you have the younger generations, right, going into the tech and really being interested in, you know, the crypto side and let's say the various different developments that has been over the past few years. But you still also see quite a significant number in the range between 30 to 50 or 30 to 49. And compared to the Norwegian results last year, we actually saw that it's a higher degree of younger population in Sweden than compared to Norway, because in Norway there's quite let's say even or actually a bit higher between 30 to 39 compared to the millennial side. And so there might be actually a more, let's say, younger adult generation in Norway buying crypto. There's definitely a high degree of, let's say, the millennial side in Sweden. It's interesting to see that you know, from 2022 to 2023 there was a decline in the crypto adoption rate in Norway, and the largest decline was on the millennial side in Norway. And I will see now for this year in Sweden, we can definitely see that at least the millennial side is then driving the adoption rate in Sweden.
Exactly. And also we are a bit limited by the age blocks from Norstat here, because we have the 30 to 49-year-old group where we have a 9% overall ownership rate. What we see from the other countries where the age groups are more finely ingrained, we see that there's a significantly higher likelihood of owning cryptocurrency between 30 and 40 than 40 and 50. So between 30 and 40, it's higher than 9%, and between 40 and 49, it's lower than 9%. On to the next demographic divide. We of course know who our respondents are, so we can see how likely it is for men to own crypto, Swedish men and Swedish women. And what we find is that there is a big divide, a big gap between the genders. About 10% of the male adult population in Sweden own cryptocurrency, whereas the same number for Swedish females is 3%. So in total of the crypto owners in Sweden, that makes about a quarter of those female. This gender gap is also something we see in other investment assets. For instance, I have freshly in mind there, the Norwegian stock numbers. There is also between 2 and 3 to 1 ratio of male to female investors. So it's not any smaller, it's slightly larger, the gender gap in crypto, but basically at the same level, I would say, than for other assets. But there's a big gender gap in crypto ownership too. What we see, we have also asked, which we will show later, the results from it, when people bought their first cryptocurrencies. And what we see is that a larger share of women have bought in the latter 2 years than among males. So at least if you go by that, it means that the ownership rate among women is growing slightly faster than for men.
Well, this is quite interesting, right, Anders, compared to Norway last year, because you saw a really decline in on the women's side, right? But that's because of the bad year in 2022 in terms of crypto. So there might be more risk adverse, and so it's interesting to see now, as you see for Sweden, that you have a good increase in the women.
Definitely. They might be more active traders.
So when did people actually buy crypto? Of those who own crypto, they say that they mainly bought it actually during COVID. So that's COVID is really where we see that the adoption became mainstream. Now, there's definitely a significant part also that bought it earlier, and even actually 9% before 2016. So that's quite early, right? Because you see a very early adoption. But when it came mainstream is really during the pandemic, which you can only speculate, but I guess it's due to both the fact that people had time, right, sitting at home and being digital and having kind of the time perhaps and interest in going into the space and learning about blockchain and crypto and whatnot. But I guess also potentially because of the falling interest rates, right, and the cash was perhaps more available for many people. And so that's interesting to see, even though there's definitely also a big chunk that was that owned crypto also before the pandemic.
Definitely. And what is not very surprising here is that the increase in ownership, I would say, tend to follow the market a bit. So when prices are rising, usually after they have risen for a little while, then new people start buying cryptocurrencies. So you can see it in 2017 versus 2016, for instance, where it was a huge rally towards the end of 2017, and then new owners spiked, and they also often buy a bit after the top, so in 2018. But what's interesting is that it doesn't fall back down again to, for instance, the 1% level from 2016 when the market's cool. People have become more aware of crypto and they continue buying. And you see the same with the 2020 after the initial Corona crash. It came the Corona rally, really, in 2020. Then you also see that there are more buyers coming in. So it's kind of hitting up another level and then staying flat. And if the prices continue now, we will see this spike go even. See this pattern continue. And that leads us over to this, because we have asked, we know that 7% of Swedes currently own cryptocurrencies, but we have also asked them whether they plan to buy in the future. And here we find some interesting results. In total, and that includes the current owners, 20%, 1 in 5, state that they plan to buy crypto within the next 10 years. That would take the number of Swedish crypto owners up to 1.6 million. And if you add a little population growth, which you haven't, it might become 1.7. And here we can see when are they planning to buy. This is of course hard to answer, but it says something about the intention to buy. So when are people going to buy the crypto in the future? You see that 6% are planning to do it within a year, a further 5% within the next 3 years, further 4% within the next 5 years, and then another 5% that plan to buy from 5 to 10 years from now. So it definitely shows that a lot of people view this as a thing of the future, where they are perhaps not ready to do it now, but they feel that they will become ready to buy it sometime in the future.
And I guess the similar response for Norway last year was about 23%, so a bit higher in Norway in terms of kind of the future ownership expectancy, but still also for Sweden a very significant number, right? Who is actually interested and I guess eager to learn more before they then are ready to invest in the future, and I guess belief into the technology and into the space that this is not something that will disappear, but actually will be part of, let's say, a diverse asset class.
That's That's a good point.
When it comes to the exchanges, so what sort of exchanges are the Swedes using, right? When buying crypto, we see that the local Swedish exchange, Safello, has definitely a significant part of the market, but it's definitely the larger international exchanges that drives the adoption. So compared to Norway last year, we see that on the Norwegian side, there's more local exchanges. And especially FINO as a large part of the market, together with international exchanges. While in Sweden, there's a much larger degree of the international exchanges. One particular point interesting for Sweden is on the far right, that many Swedes actually invest through so-called ETFs or ETPs, which basically means that they invest in securities who are then buying crypto. So obviously the most known now in this year is BlackRock's acceptance, right, with the US SEC, that they got approved a Bitcoin ETF. But that this has actually been in place in both Sweden and Europe for a longer period of time. We see that many Swedes are then investing not directly into crypto, but through these securities, which I guess might be due to the, as I mentioned, the established fintech nature of Sweden, that they have a large financial sector, and many of them might feel more comfortable investing through these securities rather than owning crypto themselves.
That's a good point. And those were our findings from the Swedish survey. Here we have kind of summarized. If you're just going to remember a few things, what should you remember? It is that more than 500,000 Swedes own crypto, 7% of all adults. Men are more eager to own crypto than women, which mirrors also other investment assets. Crypto owners are young. Almost 50% of the crypto owners in Sweden are under 30 years old. And many people are planning to buy crypto for the first time in the coming 10 years. So according to responses, 20% of the Swedish population will own cryptocurrency within the next 10 years.
Thank you very much, Anders and Mats, for this great and interesting survey. And as we have been live for 20-25 minutes, there has been a double of people attending this live event. So just a little short summary regarding what this presentation is. It is the first time that K33 and Ernst & Young are preparing and have done a survey regarding crypto adoption in the Nordics. So it includes Sweden and Denmark and Finland and Norway. And today we are presenting the Swedish results. Tomorrow we will do the Danish one. On Wednesday the Finnish one, and on Thursday we will also then present the results from Norway and also do a Nordic summary. But maybe then some of our viewers didn't participate in some of the slides. So I was just asking you guys, Anders and Mats, when you started to prepare this survey, did you have any expectations? And are the results in line with expectations, or are there any surprises here?
Sorry, Mats. Thank you. We have done this survey in Norway for many years, so we have those numbers to go from. And the last year's survey said that 8% of Norwegians own cryptocurrency. So without knowing anything else than that, I would have guessed the same number for Sweden. So we find that the number in Sweden is slightly lower, 7%. Still is not far from 8. It's the next number. So the ownership rate is in the ballpark of what I would expect. We also new, like everything, both new from the former Norwegian survey based on feeling and other investment assets, that the gender gap is quite big, that there are more male owners than female. Also, without having like a specific feeling for the exact number, it's not surprising that crypto owners generally are young, because it's new technology, it's on the internet, it's something that is more tempting for young people in general than the older population. And in terms of forecasting, I would say it's an interesting result. I wouldn't have any expectation on that really beforehand.
What about you,
No, I
Mats?
guess- Yeah, I guess having it confirmed, right? It's all about having, one thing is to have an expectation, but actually having it confirmed that, more than 550,000 Swedes own crypto. It gives kind of sort of a credibility, to the whole industry that, there's so many people interested into this, interesting to learn and have a belief in kind of the industry as a whole. And especially important perhaps for Sweden as kind of a fintech hub, right? Having lots of financial institutions being into this space, let's say the larger financial industry for many years. It's interesting to see that many of them also are investing into this space, and perhaps then in particular the more securitized products, because then you see perhaps there are also some, let's say, more institutional investors who are not interested to invest directly into crypto, but they are positive towards the larger trend and then are interested to invest in the securitized versions.
Then I think we can include some more people and guests in the conversation, because we have also invited thought leaders and business leaders from Sweden. So maybe, Magne, you can just bring them on. Yes, we have, maybe we can have a short introduction of each of them before we start the conversation. We could start with you, David Bergling.
Yeah, I'm David. I'm like the founder of Web3 Sweden. It's a Swedish community that is gathering dedicated Web3 people around, primarily in Sweden, but we welcome everyone. So it's collaboration, connection, and spreading good vibes about Web3. That's what we do.
Yeah, then we can continue with Erik Westerlund.
Yes, so my name is Eric. I'm the CEO of Goobit. We operate a cryptocurrency brokerage here in Sweden called BTCX. And then we also do some AML products and services within this space. And are also involved in trying to set up an industry association here in Sweden to try to fix some of the issues that we see.
Yes, and then we also have Matt Bruniarek.
Hey, welcome. I'm head of operations at Safello. Safello is operating since 2013 in Sweden. Seemingly the largest platform here locally. We just crossed 358,000 customers. Since the beginning, trying to work with authorities in a compliant way, build the most secure platform, Safello for Swedish customers.
Maybe you could continue then, Matt. I know that you ended up in this video event not that much hours ago, but you have seen the results as everybody else. And what do you think about these findings?
I think it's interesting, and it, in a way, it reflects what we see within our data, but also it has a few caveats that surprised me. Definitely one thing that I would like to highlight here is this projection to the future. I think that we tend to underestimate how the space will evolve and how this crypto adoption will look in 3, 5, 10 years. What we see is that people who today they don't even know what crypto is, or they hate crypto. They are not planning to use crypto, but tomorrow there is a use case that I want to invest, or I want to use crypto for something, and they enter the space. So I think that was the most surprising element for me. I think I'm a little bit more bullish, especially with the coming market that we expect within the next months or years to grow. So I would expect a little bit bigger growth. But the majority of the data, I think I agree. Unfortunately, the gender gap is still there. We see the same thing. So we try to encourage female to also enter the space as well. Starting with our employees, we are, I think, nearly 50-50 at the company itself.
Let us continue with you then, Eric.
Yes. So the most surprising, or I guess expected, is we tend to see ourselves at our largest competitor is Safello or Trio there, but then you see the numbers and it's 20% of the market, and most of the others are international and also the ETPs. And the reason for that, I guess, one part is that Nasdaq was very innovative in the forefront, so they launched the ETP or listed the ETP in 2015, which made us very early. That's of course a large competitor to owning Bitcoin directly, because in Sweden you can also have them in an ISK, which is very good for tax reasons. So I guess that's a big part, but also as Matt was into is I'm very optimistic going forward, and also for us businesses, that when MiCA is coming, the regulation gets clear, collaborating with governments and banks also will become easier. So yeah, in short, I think that.
David, maybe you then could add some flavor to the community, because you have now had the events in Malmö and in Gothenburg and in Stockholm, and do you experience the same kind of in these communities? For instance, the gender gap, is that the same when you are working in the events?
Yeah, it is. Too bad, but we have some really strong and experienced females in the community. So I think they will actually bring more balance into that gap going forward. So I'm feeling positive on that end. But yes, it is. It's quite heavy on the male side, definitely.
Regarding demographics then, the age part of it, do you see that also in the events?
No, I realized it's almost 20% of all the young people in this survey, and I think predominantly in our current community, we're about 300 right now. But most, I would say, most are within 30 to 50. I would say. Then we have some students. So I think we need to look more to the youth and the up and coming people in Sweden. There's more growth, definitely.
Perhaps there can be a difference between the consumers and the people that are part of the startup community, maybe then, because people are more engaged in the 20s, the 30s or 40s starting business. Can that be an explanation?
I think what's interesting with the young audience is that they probably are quite familiar with tokenomics and within the games, so they are used to own digital assets already, so it's nothing strange with doing it. And so the owning cryptocurrency is not that different from owning a skin, for example, in a game. So I think that could be a difference, and definitely we need to pinpoint those more. And also, I know there are some educations already in Sweden. I think we will need a lot more educations on this part, because it will grow much quicker than well, both Matt and Eric mentioned it about the thoughts about 2034. I think they are way too bearish. I think it will go much faster than that, the adoption. Yeah.
Maybe we also could ask Cesar to comment on the findings. We have already heard from you about the meaningfulness of having a survey, but from an industrial point of view, do you have any views about these findings?
Well, thank you. The numbers for me are quite surprising and interesting, because when we see that in a country of 10 million population as Sweden, we are close to 10% of the population is 7, so they are in the way to getting 10, and they are owning cryptocurrency. So this is the straightforward message to the policymakers that this particular industry needs to pay attention of it, despite the message we are hearing now and then from the Riksbank, from the Finansinspektionen, from the Skatteverket. So the people are adopting the cryptocurrency despite those hindering in Sweden. And also when we see the adoption rates, it's related to the global market. It's not related to what is going here in the market. So the numbers are really interesting, and I think it's a clear and straightforward message to the policymakers to pay attention to the crypto industry in the country and try to let those companies that they are here to thrive more and remove the idea from their head to leave the country, because many of them, they are start preparing to go to other countries where it is much more safer for them to keep practicing the business.
Mats, you wanted to join in the conversation here right now.
Yeah, because just to build upon what's been said here, right? I think, yes, it's really important to factor in that the younger generation is into this, but obviously they might not have as big, let's say, funds invested into the crypto as, let's say, the older generation, or perhaps 30 to 39. But it gives, let's say, it's something about understanding the market and then having kind of a faith into this space and into the technology, so that when these people, the younger generation, go through their studies and into both larger corporations and into public authorities and into scale-ups and startups, when they have in their mind a positive view and are invested into a particular, let's say, industry, both more knowledgeable and also financially, then obviously that might perhaps even drive the adoption further, because you might see more corporations and also perhaps even public authorities being more positive minded towards the industry because they are more knowledgeable, the people that work there. And that can drive not only, let's say, the crypto adoption, but actually the enterprise platforms as well, and companies using the technology in order to meet their business goals, really. So I think it's important to take into account not only, let's say, the crypto adoption per se, but actually the knowledge that this brings, that they need to kind of understand this technology, how it works, which then might be really, really a critical factor when those people go through their studies and are going into the work environment.
I can just add that we have also we are streaming both on a landing page on Cooper's news site and on YouTube and on Twitter, and we also have some comments, and people are excited that we are sharing these results. And someone also, Carl Chloe, thinks that the numbers of the crypto users will be much higher in 2024 than the results is saying. But if we then think about adoption going ahead, because we all talk about the next billion of users worldwide, what is the barrier to adoption. Well, what do you think about that? Anyone want to join in? Anders, what about you?
Yes, about the barriers. I'm not fully sure, to be honest. I think I very much agree with those saying that this estimate might be a bit too low, and because, as has been said, many people who say no, I will never buy crypto today. If you go back 5 years and you ask, will you buy it in the next 15 years? So we are in the same time frame for 2034. A lot less people would say that they want to buy crypto than 20%. So people doesn't necessarily understand that they will want to buy crypto in 2 or 3 years. So it's very much to get the feel for the current view on crypto rather than an actual estimate for the future. If you look at like the number of people owning cryptocurrency, I think that's a bit different than, or you can have different types of adoption. You can have adoption of it as an investment asset. You can have adoption of it as usage in Web3, other NFTs for games or tickets or everything. So I think it depends very much on what you talk about. Then you have payments possibly and all that. So you have like different adoption axis you can have adoption along, where I think the investment asset is what will have the highest numbers in the short term, but these other can be equally interesting.
What about you, Matt, regarding adoption and barriers to adoption?
I always think about the adoption and the barriers as like we need use cases. We need more use cases and better use cases, right? People are not just start investing in crypto because they heard about it in the supermarket. Like, we need to solve problems and give people the solutions. We know that in Sweden, there is no problem with payments, with card payments, we have Swish, we have all these things. So actually the financial system is very mature and it's very stable. It's a completely different thing if you go to South America, if you go to Africa, Asia, you can have completely different use cases in different jurisdictions. But I think looking at Sweden, I think there is like a important distinction. Also looking at the gaps in the different age groups, is that there's different use cases for different age groups, right? Young people, they want to just get on with crypto, buy something, some small amount, and send it to Web3, buy a skin, buy something, do like things that you can only imagine. While a little bit older people, they want to buy and they want to hold, but they also want to buy for bigger amounts. So that's a completely different use case. And there is a distinction that these younger people, generally, they have less money to invest in. But there's a similar comment to what was said previously. They will enter the workforce, they will enter the authorities, the regulators, and they will influence the view on crypto. But they will also start getting their own money. They will start their own portfolios. So they will have more money to invest. And we hope that this will also allow them to build this portfolio on crypto. And we hope that this will be direct crypto ownership, not through the certificates or NASDAQ and so on.
What about you, Eric? Bring it on.
Yes, so regarding the barriers, I see two things. So one is for businesses. It's very challenging to run a crypto business in Sweden. And the main part is that it's very hard to get a bank account. So if you go to a bank, I understand to some point, like we run a brokerage and everything, it's a high risk business from a bank's perspective. But if you go to a bank and say you're going to do consulting and you say your main clients is crypto businesses, you will probably not get a bank account. And it's pretty hard to run a business without a bank account. So that's one challenge. And then also, as someone mentioned before, our authorities have been openly skeptical. So our head of the central bank was out saying that Bitcoin will never be in our financial system, or I'm paraphrasing there, but something similar. And if you're a head at a bank, you you kind of do not want to make the central bank angry, so you maybe push away the crypto businesses. So that's one challenge, and that's one barrier. And why I think that's important is because entrepreneurs tend to figure out solutions to different problems. And if you can't really be an entrepreneur in this space, it makes it challenging. So I think that's very important to fix, and we're working on it. And I think Mika will help out there. The other point is, and this is more on the retail side, it's regarding tax laws to make it way easier to do your taxes. So we had a discussion with our tax authority 6 months ago, and just to give a perspective here, 8,500 people declared their crypto taxes in 2022 for 2021, when most people speculated. Let's say this 550,000 number is correct, and maybe half of those bought and sold. That's maybe like 3% of their taxes, and that's not great. And to be fair, the tax authority now, they have a group that is very knowledgeable in crypto and are pushing to change the regulations. So that's very good. So I'm optimistic on both sides.
Mats, your turn.
Thank you. So I wanted to highlight a couple of surveys that we do on the AI side, because we conduct regular surveys both towards global CEOs, but also towards Nordic CEOs in conjunction with the Oslo Business Forum and their CEO network. And what we see on the AI side is that the main barriers towards adoption of AI is knowledge. So really the skill set of the people, and regulatory ethical concerns. And this might actually be quite similar in the blockchain crypto space, because knowledge about how the technology actually works, the actual inherent risks and how to mitigate them, I think is a key factor in order for both, let's say, public authorities, banks, and more, let's say, the traditional corporate world, in order to understand what this really is about and what sort of inherent risks are, but also how to mitigate them. And that's one thing. And then we see now on the regulatory side and the ethical side, previously it's been without specific regulations outside, let's say, the anti-money laundering regulations that are included in the Nordic regions. There's not been many specific regulations for this, right? Now with markets in crypto assets regulation coming into play during 2024, it might be more better suited for, let's say, larger corporations and also banks, in order to actually accept, let's say, companies within the crypto industry, because you have a safer frames around it. And we see that because we do, obviously, we talk with lots of the larger players, but also do regulatory and tax courses when it comes to the crypto side. And we see that many banks especially, but also other players, institutional players, are very interested to learn more. So I think more than with increased regulation and increased knowledge is going to drive the adoption rate further, not only buying crypto, but actually using blockchain technology in an enterprise and public manner.
Yes. What about you then, Cesar? You also have some thoughts about adoption and barriers to adoption.
Yeah, I do share the same views as Eric. So as from the industry, is not only the banking, which are somehow hindering the development of the industry. It's also, when you have a regular business, it's hard for you to get corporate bank accounts, not only when it is about crypto. And this needs to be changed. So the numbers, when we see 500,000 of Swedes are users or owner of cryptocurrency, I think this is a straightforward message to the banking that there is people in this country who are practicing legitimate business, and the banking industry need to listen to those people. So the second thing is that the previous, when it comes to the regulator and the Riksbank policies, the previous governor said there will be no crypto in the future, and the actual one is saying we want less. Probably there is a shifting in their thinking. So probably next year we will have them saying, okay, let's sit in the table and think. And one positive thing that there is some institution in Sweden, in the regulator, as Eric mentioned, they are started to pay attention. They start to hire knowledgeable people, and they are now doing their homework and try to understand and get close to the industry players. So, and this is very positive point of view to consider for the future of the cryptocurrency in Sweden. Nevertheless, the regulator and the banking and the main element that hinders any development and future adoption of the cryptocurrency in the country.
David, what about in your communities? Do you see any when new people come into the space? Do you see any pattern, or what do you think about the future of adoption and the way to recruit new people into the user meetups, for instance?
Currently, it's most already dedicated people within the community, and I think that's both good, but also we want to bridge more Web 2 people into Web 3. So I think both Mohammed and Carl in the comments have some good points there. We need to make it the barrier easier, and for most, I think for most people, Web 3 is crypto is Web 3, and I think that there's so much more, but crypto is also really good entry barrier, entry point, and I think regarding the barrier, we did get a really big change in the beginning of the year, and it was when the ETF became available, and suddenly Larry Fink and BlackRock and all the major institutions went from being skeptical to positive, and of course that will have a large effect on the market, especially since we already are above all-time high levels from the past. So I think it's just a matter of time until we will see retail getting back more, and when they come back, I think a new target group of members within Web3 community will also start to grow.
We also have several comments, as you mentioned, David, and someone are talking about user experience, for instance, regarding wallets. Someone are talking about the impression of the industry, what you could call it, that it's still identified with scams from people outside of the industry. Some people have now talked about the regulation part. And we have, in the last months, have what we could also call then the meeting between TradFi and crypto, which also someone you already have mentioned, where the people, the wealth managers from the States are leading the space. But is something of that happening in the Nordics, or are the banks and everybody just waiting on the sideline? What about you, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that the TradFi players in Sweden or the Nordics are getting enthusiastic yet. But we see some change. In the past, we used to observe, unfortunately, our customers who, just because they get some transaction from crypto player like Safello, they might have been off-boarded from their bank. Now we observe in some conversations with the banks, we observe that they acquire licenses to track crypto on the blockchain, and they investigate their customers' funds to see if it's illicit or not. So they are tipping their toes here and there, this bank or that bank. And I think it's slightly changing a little bit, like maybe because they are scared, or maybe they are looking in the future. They are not enthusiastic yet. They are kind of like trying to defend themselves. And of course, there's regulation changing. There is MiCA coming. There are a lot of things that are going to push them more and more into crypto, which is a very positive thing. And this relationship with the banks between the crypto and TradFi, it's crucial, right? That's what creates those use cases. That's what creates this easiness for the customer. And I speak as a fellow, and I really think that this is extremely important. We we are very grateful for our banking partner. We have Swedish Bank, and we have the Swish Pay In and Swish Payout, which creates an enormous easiness for the customer. Customers love Swish. Customers love having Swedish banking rails, and having that really allows the customers to trust and safe. And like, even if those customers who don't trust crypto, maybe they can start like, you know, a little bit, just little by little, just because they feel secure within this like environment. So creating this environment between the crypto players and the TradFi is really crucial for creating this adoption in the coming 3, 5, 10 years.
We have 3 minutes left of this streaming, and 1 minute for you, Mats, and then I will give 1 minute to Anders, and then I will end the stream. So Mats, a short comment.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to build out further of what Matt said, because what we see with MiCA, I think it can be a really competitive advantage for Europe compared to, for instance, the US, which has a more uncertain, let's say, regulatory situation. Because regulation cannot necessarily only be kind of reducing innovation. It can actually accelerate innovation, because you create kind of that safe frame in order to kind of develop new solutions. And that is also what we see with the existing virtual asset service providers that are regulated or at least registered with the financial authorities, is that the banks at least trust to kind of operate towards them or have customers that use them, because then at least they are under license. And I think now with MiCA, you're going to have more licensed players, which then creates, again, that safe environment for the traditional financial institutions in order to kind of be more involved and accept kind of this industry as a whole, because you have the regulators and you have the financial authorities who are at least looking at this space and kind of creating this safe harbor for the existing TradFi environment.
I would just wanted to ask Anders, because you have presented these results and we have had a great discussion. And is it worthwhile to follow these other events? Do you have some exciting findings left to the Danes, left to the Finns, left to the Norwegians?
Definitely. So it will be very interesting to also present the numbers for the other countries, the other Nordic countries, in the coming days. I won't give you the results from these other services right now, but there are both similarities and differences between the Nordic countries. So I think if you are into Nordic crypto adoption, I would definitely advise you to follow the presentations in the coming days too.
Yes, and thank you, Dan. Thank you for people that have been following this event. And there has been, right now, there are 150 that are following this event. And when we started, it was 30. So that is also sort of a adoption number, you could say. And thank you very much to the presenters and to the guests that has given additional value to this presentation and giving some thoughts about the status and the way to go forward. So we'll come back tomorrow for another event, and we will also then share both the press release and the links to the report and other types of information going forward. So thank you very much and have a nice Monday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.